Rafael sat on a cracked sidewalk near the busy streets of Manila, his old guitar resting against his knee. The smell of roasted corn mixed with car exhaust filled the air as people hurried by, barely noticing him. He was just another homeless man trying to survive another day. But when he sang, everything changed. His voice carried through the noise, deep and full of emotion, touching the hearts of strangers passing by. Some would stop for a moment, record him on their phones, drop a few coins in his box, and walk away. Singing wasn't just his passion, it was his escape. Every song was a piece of his soul, telling stories of hunger, loss, and hope. He hadn't always lived this way. Years ago, Rafael dreamed of becoming a singer, performing on big stages, making his family proud. But life had been cruel. His mother fell ill, and he spent every last peso on her medicine until there was nothing left. When she passed away, he had no one to turn to. He lost his small apartment, his job, and eventually, his sense of belonging. Nights were the hardest, when the city grew quiet and the loneliness became unbearable. Yet, no matter how hungry or tired he felt, music kept him alive. He sang not for fame or money, but because it reminded him that he still existed. One rainy night, as he sang under a flickering streetlight, a foreign tourist stopped to listen. The woman was mesmerized by his voice. She took out her phone and recorded him performing a heartfelt version of Hallelujah. She smiled, dropped a few bills in his box, and walked away. Rafael didn't think much of it. For him, it was just another night. But that video would change everything. The next morning, he woke up under the bridge, soaked and shivering. When he wandered to a nearby food stall, the vendor recognized him. "Hey, you're that singer from the internet," the man said excitedly. Rafael was confused. He didn't own a phone or have internet access. The vendor showed him a video on his phone, Rafael's face, his voice, his song. The video had millions of views, with comments from people around the world calling him the golden voice of the streets. Tears welled up in Rafael's eyes as he realized that, for the first time, the world was hearing him. Over the next few days, reporters came searching for him. News channels featured his story, showing the world a homeless man with the voice of an angel. Offers of help poured in, people wanted to donate, to find him a home, to give him a second chance. But Rafael didn't know who to trust. He had lived years surrounded by lies and disappointment, and he feared this attention would disappear as quickly as it came. Then, one evening, while sitting at a small park, a woman approached him. She introduced herself as Maria Lopez, a talent scout who worked with international auditions. She told him she had seen his video and believed he deserved to sing on one of the biggest stages in the world, America's Got Talent. Rafael laughed at first. "Me? In America? That's impossible," he said softly. But Maria smiled and handed him a plane ticket. "Nothing is impossible when you have a voice like that," she replied. For the first time in years, Rafael felt something he had forgotten: hope. The next few days felt unreal. Volunteers helped him get new clothes, a passport, and a chance to leave the streets behind. As he stood at the airport, clutching his small guitar case, he looked out at the city one last time. The same streets that had broken him were now the ones sending him toward a dream. With trembling hands, he whispered, "Mama, I'm going to make you proud." Then he stepped onto the plane, unaware that the world was about to witness a voice that could touch millions, and change his life forever. The moment Rafael stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, his heart raced faster than it ever had. The stage lights blinded him for a second, and the roar of the audience echoed in his chest. He looked down at his shoes, old but clean, donated by a kind stranger before his flight, and took a deep breath. Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Heidi Klum, and Howie Mandel sat before him, each with curious eyes. He gripped the microphone tightly, his hands trembling. Simon leaned forward slightly and asked, "What's your name, and where are you from?" Rafael swallowed hard. "My name is Rafael Cruz, and I'm from the Philippines," he said softly. The crowd cheered at the mention of his country. When Simon asked what he did for a living, Rafael hesitated, then answered honestly, "I've been homeless for some time, but I sing on the streets back home." The audience fell silent. Simon nodded, his expression serious but warm. "Well, let's hear what you've got," he said. The soft piano intro began to play. Rafael closed his eyes, letting the music fill him. He sang an emotional version of, "You Are the Reason," his voice trembling at first but growing stronger with each word. His voice wasn't just powerful, it was pure, carrying every bit of pain, struggle, and hope he had lived through. The audience grew still, listening to every note. By the time he reached the chorus, the room was filled with emotion. People in the crowd were crying. Even the judges looked moved. As he sang the final line, Rafael's voice broke slightly, but it made the moment even more real. When the last note faded, there was silence for a heartbeat, and then the entire audience erupted in applause. Simon Cowell, usually known for his harsh criticism, stood up slowly, a rare smile on his face. Then, without saying a word, he pressed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti rained down over Rafael as he stood frozen in disbelief. Tears filled his eyes as he covered his face with his hands. Simon walked up to the stage and said, "You just reminded everyone why we love music." That was absolutely beautiful. Rafael couldn't stop crying. For a man who once sang for coins, this moment felt like heaven. The crowd chanted his name as he was led off stage, still shaking, his dream now a reality. In the weeks that followed, Rafael's life changed completely. He moved into a small apartment in Los Angeles, rehearsed with professional coaches, and appeared on talk shows. But fame brought pressure he had never known before. As the semi-finals approached, the weight of expectation began to crush him. During rehearsals, his voice cracked. He couldn't sleep, haunted by fears of failure. What if they think the first performance was luck? He whispered to himself. His manager tried to reassure him, but the nerves wouldn't go away. One night, he sat alone in his room, staring out at the city lights, missing home. His phone buzzed. It was a video call from his younger sister, Anna, in Manila. Her face lit up the screen. "Kuya, you've already won," she told him. "You're living our dream. Don't stop now." Her words reignited his fire. When the night of the semi-finals arrived, Rafael stepped onto the stage with renewed courage. The audience cheered as he began to sing, "You Raise Me Up." His voice soared, stronger and more controlled than ever, filled with love and gratitude. Each note reached deep into the hearts of everyone listening. When he finished, there was a moment of stunned silence before the crowd stood in unison, clapping and cheering louder than ever. The judges were on their feet. Simon smiled proudly and said, "Rafael, that was perfection. You don't just sing, you make people feel." Tears rolled down Rafael's face again, but this time they weren't from fear, they were from joy. He had made it to the finals, not just as a contestant, but as a symbol of hope for everyone who had ever been forgotten by the world. The night of the finals arrived, and the atmosphere inside the theater was electric. Millions of people were watching around the world, waiting to see if the homeless singer from the Philippines could make history. Backstage, Rafael stood quietly, holding his guitar. His palms were sweaty, and his heart pounded so loud it drowned out the sound of everything else. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, a clean suit, styled hair, but the same boy who once sang Under the Bridge in Manila. He whispered a prayer to his late mother, asking for strength. The producer gave him a signal, and he took a deep breath before stepping onto the stage. The lights dimmed, and silence filled the room. Simon Cowell smiled softly at him, as if telling him without words, "You belong here." Rafael began to play the first chords of his original song, Home is a Song. The lyrics spoke of his journey, the cold nights, the hunger, the loneliness, and the unbreakable hope that kept him singing. His voice was steady, yet full of emotion, weaving through every word with grace and power. The audience listened in awe, drawn into his story through his music. When he reached the chorus, the lights glowed golden behind him, and the crowd swayed to the rhythm. Some audience members cried, others simply closed their eyes to feel the emotion in his voice. As he sang the final verse, his voice cracked slightly, but it only made the moment more real. The camera zoomed in on Simon Cowell wiping his eyes, something few had ever seen. When the last note faded, there was a long pause, then thunderous applause. Everyone in the theater stood, cheering his name. The judges looked amazed. Sofia Vergara said, "You sang from your soul. That's what true art is." Heidi Klum added, "You've shown the world that dreams can come from anywhere, even from the streets." Simon Cowell smiled and said, "Rafael, you may not realize this yet, but tonight, you became an international star." Rafael's knees felt weak as tears streamed down his face. He bowed deeply, overwhelmed by the love surrounding him. When the votes were announced later that night, he didn't win the competition, but it didn't matter. His story had already touched millions. He walked off stage with pride, knowing he had given the performance of his life. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Rafael's video from the finals went viral again, this time reaching hundreds of millions of views. Record labels called, talk shows invited him, and fans from all over the world sent messages of love and support. He signed a record deal, but he made one condition: he wanted part of his earnings to go to help homeless musicians and children who couldn't afford music lessons. He remembered every night he had spent hungry and hopeless, and he wanted to make sure no one else had to go through the same pain without a chance to rise. Months later, Rafael returned to the Philippines. When he stepped out of the airport, a crowd was waiting, fans holding banners, children singing his songs, and cameras flashing everywhere. But what touched him most was the small group of homeless kids near the gates, watching him with wide eyes. He walked straight to them, smiled, and handed one of them his guitar. "This is for you," he said softly. "Music saved me. Let it save you too." He soon launched the Golden Voice Foundation, dedicated to helping underprivileged youth discover their talent. He organized concerts, raised funds, and gave free lessons in the same streets where he once sang for coins. His first major concert in Manila sold out within minutes. As he walked on stage, the crowd erupted in cheers. Golden lights filled the arena, and Rafael performed, "Home is a Song," once more. The lyrics carried new meaning now. This time, they weren't just about finding a home but creating one through love, kindness, and music. At the end of the concert, confetti rained down again, shimmering gold just like that night on America's Got Talent. Rafael looked up at the sky, smiled, and whispered, "Mama, I made it." He had started as a nameless street singer, but now his voice had become a symbol of hope across the world. His journey proved that even from the darkest places, a single voice could rise and shine bright enough to change the world.